Hey, good morning. How are you doing? So today is the 3rd of December, and I wanted to just celebrate that fact that we're in December and that Christmas is on its way. New Year's Day is on its way, the beginning of a new year, 2019. I actually have already been starting to think about what my New Year's resolution will be in 2019, and I wonder if you've been thinking the same thing. Now, my guess is that maybe not, and that is because most New Year's days I know just come and go really quickly. It's I don't have time to. I usually don't plan ahead when it comes to say what my New Year's resolutions are going to be for 2019. But this year, I'm trying to give it a little extra thought. And right now, I'm thinking that my New Year's resolutions will probably involve number one, exercise, number two, education, and I haven't quite decided what number three is going to be. But I think that if I could have, maybe 3 dimensions of my New Year's resolution, that would be pretty nice. Of course, just having one New Year's resolution and following through with that is more than sufficient. By the way, I'm looking forward to learning about the origin of New Year's. This is a book called Panatti's Extraordinary Origins of Everyday Things. And in it, there is a section about New Year's Day. So what do you say we get into it? And then maybe along the way, I'll provide some commentary, and we'll see what the significance of New Year's Day is and what its origins are. To get started, let me imagine when New Year's Day started. My guess, and this is just a guess, I have no idea, I haven't read the article yet. My guess is it might have started during the Roman Empire. Why might it have started during that time? I have no idea. Maybe I'm guessing near the fall of the Roman Empire, maybe 400. Is it 400 AD? Sometime around there. Why would I guess? Well, I'm guessing, and I don't know this, but I think that, I don't know how long we've had an account of the year and the seasons. It might span, thousands of years ago, maybe even pre-Egyptian times. I can imagine the flooding and lowering of the Nile River might be an annual type event that could be calculated and predicted. Maybe I want to revise my answer, not Roman times, but maybe even Egyptian times. I think that's what I'm going to do. So maybe even prior to that. I'm going to keep my guess at Egyptian times. Let's see how accurate I am. So this book says New Year's Day, 2000 BC, Babylonia. Fascinating. Okay, so I was off about 2,000 years. But this book says that New Year's Day began in 2000 BC in Babylonia. So the passage goes, our word holiday comes from the Middle English holiday, meaning holy day. For until recently, humankind celebrations were of a religious nature. That's an interesting point. New Year's Day is the oldest and most universal of all such holy day festivals. I had no idea. Really? The oldest? Wow, of holy day rituals. Well, I can remember what is that Stonehenge in England. So that tells me that there were peoples that lived long ago who paid attention to the sky and paid attention to the stars and the moon, and were very focused on the sun and its movement. And it makes total sense to me that there would be holidays associated with that. All right, next paragraph. Its story begins, oddly enough, at a time when there was as yet no such thing as a calendar year. The time between the sowing of seeds and the harvesting of crops represented a year or cycle. The earliest recorded New Year's festival was staged in the city of Babylon, the capital of Babylonia, whose ruins stand near the modern town of Al-Hilla, Iraq. The new year was celebrated late in March at the vernal equinox, when spring begins, and the occasion lasted 11 days. Modern festivities pale by comparison. Initiating events, a high priest rising 2 hours before dawn, washed in the sacred water of the Euphrates, then offered a hymn to the region's chief god of agriculture, Marduk, praying for a bountiful new cycle of crops. The rump of a beheaded ram was rubbed against the temple walls to absorb any contagion that might infest the sacred edifice and, by implication, the next year's harvest. The ceremony was called Kupuru, a word that appeared among the Hebrews at about the same time in their Day of Atonement festival, Yom Kippur. Wow. Fascinating. Huh. Euphrates River, Marduk, celebrated in the spring equinox, late March. I think I like that idea of a celebration of spring. But though I'm also quite happy with solstice celebration. And interestingly enough, there is a gap. I mean, the solstice is generally the 21st of December, and New Year's Day is a few days after that. It's what, 5 or 6 days, or actually, you know what? Now that I think about it, it's about 10 days after the winter solstice. I wonder why the gap. I guess it wasn't necessarily a sun-defined holiday. It may have been a moon-defined holiday, or it must have been some type of sun-defined holiday. Let's see. Maybe it had more to do with harvest time. We'll read on. Food, wine, and hard liquor were copiously consumed for the enjoyment they provided. But more important, as a gesture of appreciation to Marduk for the previous year's harvest, a masked mummers play was enacted on the 6th day, a tribute to the goddess of fertility. It was followed by a sumptuous parade, highlighted by music, dancing, and costumes. Starting at the temple and terminating at the outskirts of Babylon at a special building known as the New Year House, whose archaeological remains have been excavated. Okay, I love this idea of a New Year house. We don't quite have that here. We certainly don't have that. Well, you know what? If we did, it would be Times Square in Washington, D.C., our New Year's house. So how New Year's Day? Oh, you know what? Interestingly enough, it involved music, dancing, and costumes. That's exactly what happens on New Year's Day in New York, in New York City. Interesting how there are two gods that are honored, and that is Marduk, the god of agriculture, and another goddess of fertility. Fascinating. And then here is an interesting image This says the caption is a high priest presiding over a New Year's celebration. Once a religious observance staged in spring to mark the end of a new agricultural season. Julius Caesar moved the holiday to the dead of winter. Oh, it was Julius Caesar who moved to the dead of winter. You know, I think it's really fascinating how New Year's Day has lost its religious connotations. You know what? Interestingly enough, that seems to be happening. That appears to be a trend that I'm noticing. For example, Christmas is being de-religified, and even other even Thanksgiving is being de-religified. Valentine's Day is being de-religified. Even Halloween is being de-religified, if it was ever religified. It's fascinating to watch this de-religification. I'm just making up this word of holidays, and it happened to. I wonder when New Year's Day started being thought of more as a secular holiday than as a religious one. So let's move along here. How New Year's Day, essentially a seed sowing occasion, shifted from the start of spring to the dead of winter is a strange, convoluted tale spanning 2 millennia. Okay, let's hear about it. From both an astronomical and agricultural standpoint, January is a perverse time for symbolically beginning a crop cycle or new year. The sun stands at no fiduciary place in the sky. That's true. As it does for the spring and autumn equinoxes and the winter and summer solstices, the 4 solar events that kick off the seasons. The holy days shift began with the Romans. Under an ancient calendar, the Romans observed March 25th, the beginning of spring, as the first day of the year. Emperors and high-ranking officials, though repeatedly tampered with the length of months and years to extend their terms of office. So it was a problem back then in Roman days. How funny. Calendar dates were so desynchronized with astronomical benchmarks by the year 153 BC that the Roman Senate, to set many public occasions straight, declared the start of the new year as January 1st. More tampering again set dates askew. To reset the calendar to January 1st in 46 BC, Julius Caesar had to let the year drag on for 445 days, earning it the historical sobriquet Year of Confusion. Caesar's new calendar was eponymously called the Julian calendar. After the Roman conversion to Christianity in the 4th century, emperors continued staging New Year's celebrations. The nascent Catholic Church, however, set on abolishing all pagan, that is non-Christian practices, condemned these observances as scandalous and forbade Christians to participate. As the church gained confidence and power, it strategically planned its own Christian festivals to compete with pagan ones, for in effect stealing their thunder. To rival the January 1st New Year's holiday, the church established its own January 1st holy day, the Feast of Christ's Circumcision. I had no idea, which is still observed by Catholics, Lutherans, Episcopalians, and many Eastern Orthodox sects. Again, I had no idea. Celebrating Christ's circumcision. Oh my goodness. I think it's funny that I grew up as a Christian and had no idea that this feast even existed. And I'm only finding out about it for the first time, even after living in essentially a Christian culture here in the United States, finding it out for the first time at age 47. I am so separate. I'm so ignorant sometimes. It's hilarious. During the Middle Ages, the church remained so strongly hostile to the old pagan New Year's that in predominantly Catholic cities and countries, the observance vanished altogether. When it periodically reemerged, it could fall practically anywhere. At one time during the Middle Ages, from the 11th to the 13th centuries, the British celebrated New Year's on March 25th, the French on Easter Sunday, and the Italians on Christmas Day, then December 15th. Only on the Iberian Peninsula was it observed on January 1st. It is only within the past 400 years that January 1st has enjoyed widespread acceptance. Okay, that's it. Wow, what discoveries. It is fascinating to me that New Year's Day was celebrated at different times of the year in different countries. Incredibly fascinating. Also fascinating that the Catholic Church, at least at that time, did not care for their members to celebrate that holiday, and set up competing holidays such as the day of Christ's circumcision. Let's have a feast to celebrate that. How funny. I think it's funny that they made something up like that, and then they established a holiday on a day competing. You know, how bizarre. How bizarre. And it's also quite funny that this holiday that describes the end of the harvest season, which ought to be fixed, according to, your major staple food groups like wheat, for example, somehow got moved from middle of March, or actually late March, to January 1st, really just transforming the meaning of the holiday. It's funny, actually, the meaning of the holiday stayed the same, but its calendar date shifted 3 months earlier. Oh, man. Now, how must it have been to live 2,000 years ago, and then have all of these holidays shifting around depending on what country you lived in? There was no consistency. I guess it's pretty understandable. There are differences state to state around the world anyway. And I can imagine a person who is immigrating from one country to another, celebrating the feast of Christ's circumcision on January 1st, and then celebrating the harvest on, say, late March as they move to another state. Essentially celebrating the same holiday, but in different places at different times. Pretty funny, man. Human culture is so amazing. It's just so fascinating. And I sort of love these ideas of the god of agriculture and the god of fertility. Sort of, what is that? Is that like I know it's like a polytheism. Is it like an animism? Not quite, I think. I wish my vocabulary was a little more correct, but anyway, that is pretty interesting. And it's interesting to note how what was essentially a religious holiday has now gone almost completely secular. And what's even more interesting is that the point of the religious holiday, the celebration of the harvests, is again completely different. When I celebrate New Year's Day, the harvest is one of the last things on my mind. Oddly enough, harvest for me is a focus of Thanksgiving, which probably has more to do with the Puritans landing in the New World than it has to do with harvesting at all. Given that, it's late November. So I don't know. It's it's fascinating. How New Year's Day used to be about the harvest, and today it really isn't about the harvest. Today, New Year's Day is about, what is it about? It's really about a calendar change. It's about, what is it about? What is New Year's Day about? I only associated with a calendar change. That is the tick, the uptick of the calendar date year from, say, 2018 to 2019. That, in my mind, is its only significance. And it's interesting how the goddess of fertility and the god of agriculture, I'm not sure who celebrates holidays associated with Marduk anymore. Hey, Google, do people celebrate Marduk?
Sorry, I don't know how to help with that yet.
Hey, Google, what is Marduk's holiday?
On the website ancient.eu, they say, from a regional agricultural deity, Marduk became the most important and powerful god of the Babylonian pantheon, attaining a level of worship bordering on monotheism.
Whoa, it bordered on monotheism. And it has to do with Babylon. So again, fascinating. Well, there we go. Babylon, 2000 BC, Babylon, the beginning of New Year's Day. Interestingly, they said that reaching a degree of popularity bordering on monotheism. Fascinating. Marduk is the way she said it. Marduk was a very famous god. Anyway, let's move on to another thing. So what do you think about this new way of transmitting information, Emily? I'm using a new microphone today, so hopefully my voice comes through the speakers a little better. And I'm pretty happy with the quality of video here. This is not too bad. So, I'm pretty happy with the way this is going. How do you like my brightness here? Is this looking pretty good? Like I can punch up the brightness. These video cameras are amazing. Anyway, let's see what's going on for me today. Well, one thing that is interesting is that Monday morning at approximately 10 a.m., 10:31, there's going to be a launch of the SpaceX launch vehicle. At least there's a high probability that it'll be launched today. So look up to the sky at around 10:31 this morning, and you'll see a rocket launch. I might text you about it earlier this morning to get you notified just prior to the launch so that you can step outside to watch it. Let's see, what else is going on today? Oh, I've got a final exam today in my machining class, my survey of machining and manufacturing class at Allen Hancock College. I spent some time last night studying for this exam, and I'm pretty confident that I'll get an A on it. And this is pretty much the last class, although there's I think at least 2 more classes coming up. One is a machining lab that'll be happening day after tomorrow. And then the next time we meet, it'll be cleanup day, where we will be cleaning up the machining lab, the machine shop. I want to say how impressed I am at Allen Hancock's machine shop. It's got a lot of mills, like 4 or 5 mills, and it's got like 4 lathes, and it's got a good number of CNC machines. It's probably got 4 or 5 CNC machines. It's a very impressive classroom, very impressively set up. Wow, it really is phenomenal. They really outfitted that machine shop very well. And, I wish I was more satisfied with the class. I wish I could have learned. I think there's a lot to learn in that subject area. And I think that, it's kind of interesting how culture is shifting nowadays. Part of the reason I was interested in the class was because it would give me some experience with hands-on tools, right? Where I'd learn how to use the mill and the lathe and the CNC machine. And because I recognize these tools as being very important for fashioning metal. Um, and I want to improve my ability to work with machines and even in a machine shop and get confidence working on with horizontal and vertical band saws and things like that. And I have been getting that experience, and I'm just realizing just how much there is to know. And I have a sense that the spirit of interest in the subject matter is waning. You know, I'm surprised that there aren't more classes, that there aren't more students who are clamoring to learn about that subject area. You know, you'd think that it would be a subject area that people would be clamoring to learn more about. And I'm getting a sense that that isn't the case. You know, I went to university. I went to 2 universities when I was younger, you know, in my early 20s. The University of New Mexico and New Mexico Tech in Socorro. And I don't think that either of them had machine shops. I'm pretty sure that neither of them did. And, you know, I think for me, it's really wonderful that this community college has such an amazing gift that is for the students, which is a machine shop class. To me, is just phenomenal and an opportunity that I would jump at the chance of having. And I feel really privileged to be a part of the class, but I get the sense during the class that the energy for learning the subject is just not there. And I'm wondering if it has to do with cultural and sociological trends relating to these skills. You know, I have a feeling that these tool skills are going out of popularity somehow, that they're not valued in our culture and in our society, and it's regrettable. I think it's very regrettable. Here's another example. I've been wanting to learn how to do woodworking for a while. I want to learn how to use a circular saw, and I want to know how to fashion wood into various shapes and designs. And I'm really struggling in finding teachers who will teach me. I'm struggling to find a classroom. Now, I know that there's a woodworking class in Santa Barbara. I think the woodworking class is at UC Santa Barbara City College. And I have been actively contemplating literally driving down to Santa Barbara, which is an hour's distance away, to take that class. You know, I think it's sad that I have to do something like that I have to drive an hour away to take a woodworking class. There ought to be woodworking classes nearby. And sometimes I fancy the idea that maybe I could get a part-time job working in some kind of wood shop and learn the tools of the trade. I don't know. Sometimes I think maybe I'll get a part-time construction job or something, help out moving stuff around, and at the same time learn how to hammer nails into wood. Those are only fanciful ideas. But I do want to learn how to do woodworking. I think it's a really valuable skill, and I would definitely like to have that up my sleeve. But there just aren't any resources for teaching me how to do that kind of work. I think one thing I'll try to do is maybe I'll ask on the internet. I'll ask on Facebook or some sort of social media. Maybe someone's got some kind of insight to me about how people learn to become woodworkers. Not that I'm going to make it my profession. It's just something that I have an interest in. I want to develop skills with working with tools and being handy around the house, and just having that general knowledge about how to be productive and effective in that way. I think as an engineer, I owe that to myself and to others who are around me. And I think, there's a lot of ways that working with wood can solve problems. It can solve problems relating to, say, furniture in a home, or structures inside cars or around cars. Even in the workplace, I think it might be a valuable skill to have. Hey, how about just to make door stops, to prop the doors open, right? Sometimes people need a triangle of wood, and I don't necessarily have the skills. I mean, I could probably pull it off if I had to, but it would be in a very makeshift way. And I'd like to have some real skill working with wood. So anyway, I'm just pleased to know that I'm getting some skill working with metal right now. And in fact, the fun is not going to stop. Next semester, I've already signed up for a class in welding. That's right, I signed up for a welding class. Really looking forward to it. I've heard good things about it. I'm looking forward to learning how to braze, learning how to use an oxyacetylene torch, maybe learn how to do, MIG or TIG welding. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm hoping to just sort of expand my knowledge and understanding of the subject area. So that's so good. I'm really looking forward to it. Another class that I want to take is a photography class, but I have a schedule conflict next semester. I can't take a welding class and a photography class at the same time. So I guess I'm going to have to learn photography on my own. Maybe I'll use the website called Skillshare.com. I've got a subscription to that website, and it's helping me learn new things about how to work Photoshop. And I just need to spend a little bit more time figuring out how to use Photoshop. But what I've learned so far has been so helpful in helping me edit my photos for use in social media. Yeah. Okay. Well, maybe it's time to go on to answering questions on my Kindle. So, Emily, this segment is about me doing a question and answer session with using a Kindle ebook that I have that has a lot of questions that it poses. And I'm hoping that you might benefit by learning a little bit more about me. Maybe you've been interested in asking me these questions and just haven't had a chance, or maybe you might be curious about my answers to this or that question. I'd like you to learn a little bit about my perspective and my experiences and my life, and I think this is a neat way to make that happen. So, what's the next question? Question number 461. Where or how do you see yourself in 1 year? Well, in 1 year, I expect pretty much how things are in the world and in my own life to be about the same. I'm not expecting there to be any big changes. So where or how do you see yourself in 1 year? So I expect to have everything be pretty much the same, the work the same, maybe the same kind of play. In 1 year, I do hope to be more active. So I do hope to have more muscle on my body, maybe slightly less body fat by maybe 1 or 2%. I hope to have my teeth fully straight, right? We both have braces. And what other things? I think for me, mostly it's about exercise and education. If there are any changes in my life, it'll be focused on exercise and education. And maybe technology, who knows? Maybe I'll have a a new tablet computer, or maybe I'll have like an Apple Watch or something like that, an Android watch. That's a possibility. But from an exercise standpoint, in 1 year, I hope to be doing, maybe next year, I hope to be doing triathlons. I think that's a real distinct possibility. I've got a few friends who are already doing regular triathlons, and I'm certainly physically fit enough to perform in one, in a sprint level triathlon. So that might be something I'll try out. So yeah, stronger, and then smarter in 1 year. I'm talking about my educational goals. I think from an education standpoint, by in 1 year, I'll have learned how to weld. Maybe I won't be certified as a welder, but I'll have learned how to weld. And then maybe I do have an interest in learning yoga. And in fact, I hope to take a class this coming semester in yoga. And so I'll look forward to that. I also look forward to knowing more about photography and about taking pictures. And that's something of great interest to me. I want to learn how to use my Canon M50 mirrorless camera better. There's so many functions that it has, and I want to do a better job at choosing the functions for whatever photographs that I'm taking at the time. So, I think that right there spans my goals in terms of education and exercise. I really don't expect my life to be that much different in a year's time. Maybe I'll have read more books. Oh, you know what? That's an interesting point. One of my goals is to read the Harry Potter series, the in the Wizarding World, and finish it to completion. I'm getting onto my third book in the series of Harry Potter, The Prisoner of Azkaban. I've already gone through the Chamber of Secrets and, of course, the Sorcerer's Stone prior to the Prisoner of Azkaban. So I'm making really good progress with the Harry Potter book series. All right, so next question. Question number 462, where or how do you see yourself in 5 years? Well, believe it or not, the answer to that question is about the same. I expect to see improvements in exercise and education, going through more books. I still hope to have the same work. In 5 years, I hope to have a closer relationship with you, Emily. And that's something that I'm looking forward to. In fact, I would guess that is the main thing I'm looking forward to over the next 5 years, as cementing our relationship together, helping us connect at a deeper level. That's something that I anticipate will happen. I'm very hopeful, fingers crossed, that'll happen. And so that's good. In 5 years, right now I'm 47 years old. In 5 years, I will be 52 years old. So I will be over 1/2 century old. So that's awesome. If I can make it that long, and I think I will, all signs point to yes, that'll be neat. I'm looking forward to sort of having that extra dose of maturity and personal growth and learning and personal development that I'll see in 5 years. Now, I don't expect to see any drastic changes. For me, I'm a person who likes habits. I like routine, and my patterns of behavior are really comfortable, and I like that. Okay, next question. Question number 463. In 10 years, where do I see myself in 10 years? Wow. Now, one thing I've learned is that it's really hard to predict the future. I don't My 5-year prediction is pretty iffy. My 10-year prediction is even more iffy. There's so many things that can happen between now and 10 years from now. Life is so dramatic sometimes. It can be very dynamic. And I even hesitate to predict a year in advance. And to predict 10 years in advance, I'm not really certain that I'll be able to do that. Age 57, maybe I'm predicting that I'll live in a somewhat nicer place, somewhat nicer apartment. Maybe I'll, yeah. I don't really expect too many changes, even over the next 10 years. We'll see how that goes. Hopefully I'm a lot stronger and smarter in 10 years, right? All right, next question. Question number 464. Is there a TV show you are addicted to? Okay, I don't have a television set. It's funny how a lot of these questions in this book relate to people who watch TV. I don't have a television set. And so am I addicted to any television serial show? No, I'm not. Now, I do watch streaming media on my laptop computer, and I do watch YouTube. And so the question might be, am I addicted to any YouTube content creators? I wouldn't say that I'm addicted to any YouTube content creators. Although I do have certain interests in certain areas. For example, productivity. There are a few content providers that I follow that relate to improving one's discipline as it relates to school and work. And there are a few content providers that I follow to learn more about those subjects. So there isn't really a TV show that I'm addicted to. Next question. Question number 465. Do you watch reruns? Now, I have been known to watch reruns of Seinfeld. Seinfeld is my most favorite comedy series, and I can still watch Seinfeld episodes using Crackle.com. That website has, the ability, it offers Seinfeld reruns, and occasionally I'll watch one. That's the only one where I typically watch reruns. I would actually like to watch more reruns of Friends, and I think it's available on Netflix. I just don't have Netflix. And I'm not interested in even spending the money to purchase a subscription to Netflix to watch Friends. I'll just catch it when I catch it. Any other question? Next question, 466. Would you date someone with several children? Yeah, I sure would. That would be no problem. But here's the thing, at least for me, in a romantic relationship, I would like to have a lot of time for us to connect with one another. And if she's, spending a lot of time with her kids, that translates into less time spent with me. And so, for that very basic reason, I would say I might be less inclined to carry on a long-term relationship. But of course, it depends. These days, it depends. It depends on personality and chemistry and context and what makes sense. I've told you recently that I've been focusing on maintaining a distance or some kind of separation in relationships instead of, say, being joined at the hip, right? In romantic relationships, I think I've had an increased focus in just being aware and maybe allowing more distance And I think I might in romantic relationships to the extent of maybe even entertaining the idea of long distance relationships and things like that as being a kind that makes sense. So, every relationship is different, and it's really hard to make generalizations like that. Next question. Question number 467. When and what was your first job? Okay, my very first job. Yeah, I remember my first job. I worked at Lotta Burger in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And I was like a sophomore in college. Now, that was the first real job that I had. I didn't necessarily work through high school. When I went to high school at Del Norte High in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I didn't necessarily work when I went to high school. And then I only started working when it was nice to have some extra cash when I was going to college. I think as a sophomore, I think I started then. Yeah, that was my first job. And I was working at a burger joint, but I wasn't working in one of the restaurants. I was working at the warehouse where all those burger joints got stock. They got all of their foods and cups and straws in the warehouse. So I would unload semi-tractor trailers filled with onions and tomato sauce. And these semi-tractor trailers were filled with everything from cups and plates and knives and spoons and napkins. And not only would I unload the tractor trailers, but I would also clean the tubs of, Lotta Burger was a burger place that manufactured or formed their own beef patties. And so I was cleaning the tubs that the beef patties, that the meat came in to make those beef patties. So I would spray the tubs with a hose and hot water and get those tubs cleaned out. And that was interesting work. I'll have to describe it. I think next time when we speak together, I'm going to talk a little bit about my first job at Lotta Burger, and I'll be able to go into great length and detail about my first job. And maybe you'll find it interesting and maybe somewhat laughable too. So I'm going to start wrapping things up, Em. Anyway, thanks for spending some time with me today and paying attention to some of these ideas that I presented about the origin of New Year's Day, and then paying attention to my answers to questions like, where am I going to be a year from now or 5 years from now? Interesting stuff. There's a lot of personal growth happening right here, right before your eyes. It's unfolding. And wish me luck on my final exam tonight at 6:00 p.m. when I take it. You don't have to wish me that much luck because I'm pretty sure I'll get an A. One of the great things about being a mature student is, first, that I do great on every exam because as a mature student, I know how to study, and I devote time to doing it, and I study so that I'm basically assured that I'll get an A in the class. And I'm also quite assiduous when it comes to performing homework tasks and getting those done. It's just one of the benefits of being a more mature student. And so anyway, it makes my learning experience a lot more enjoyable, and I get better grades as a result. So my transcript is looking pretty good. Anyway, Again, I hope you have a wonderful day today and a wonderful rest of the week. I'm thinking about possibly going to Disneyland this weekend. So I'll be thinking about you. You're certainly welcome to come along with me. And in fact, I heartily invite you to come along if you have a chance. If you have a chance, send me a text or something. I think I'll send you a text message just prior to me going, and or I'll probably most certainly mention it in a letter that I write maybe tomorrow. So anyway, take care, Em, and I hope you have a wonderful day, and I love you very much.